Hey everyone, welcome to this chess video. So this one, we are actually looking at an old game of mine, which I played back in 2020, and that was against the highest rated chess.com Christmas bot. At the time it was known as Hollybot, and unfortunately chess.com has taken those bots off. Usually they replace them each year and you get the same holiday bots coming back around December-ish. They're not up this year, so that makes me think that maybe chess.com doesn't have the copyright license for them or something along those lines. I kind of hope these bots come back, but in the off chance they do come back right before Christmas, here's my game against Hollybot, the hardest bot to beat, a rating of 2,000, and so we're going to show how I actually won against this bot. Now, I don't remember what my rating was back then, but I think it was roughly around 1900. I didn't want to put in a rating here, so I just left this blank. But I'm super sure that Hollybot was 2000 and gave me a lot of trouble. Now, additionally, I also made a chess.com forum on this a long time ago. So if you want to check that out here, you can take a look at the entire game. I annotated really nicely here. But I'm also going to have a really nice video to summarize this game as we'll go through with this video here. But okay, let's actually get started. Let's not wait too long and kind of celebrate this more or less Christmassy theme. Okay, so here I start with d4. And what's actually really interesting about this game is I actually started playing on Christmas Eve. And it was very close to Christmas, and the game actually ended on Christmas Day. So if you check the archive, it actually shows that I played this game on Christmas Day of December, 2022. So I thought that was kind of neat. So, I start with this. Turns out to be a really interesting game. So they play pawn to d5. I play c4 because I usually play the Queen's Gambit. They decline it with d6, and okay, so far we're playing a pretty normal looking game. I play knight c3, but it does not stay too normal for long, because the normal move, very popular, is play knight f6, completely fine move, but here we have another fine move, which is a lot less common. And so that move is bishop to e7, which is a bit mysterious for people because it looks like it's a bit passive here. But keep in mind, in a lot of the lines when you play knight to f6, this bishop usually goes to e7 anyway, oftentimes to break the pin that comes from bishop g5. So it's just an interesting move order, but it has some pros and cons to it. There's actually some benefits to playing this, as well as some differences that could possibly come up. And so we're actually going to see one of those differences that wouldn't normally happen. So here I exchange, okay, they take back, and so now I need some kind of plan, because if I didn't have some kind of plan, then this exchange on d5 is actually not a good move. And the reason why it wouldn't be good is because with no plan here, I should maintain the tension, and this bishop is actually blocked in their pawn chain. Now, obviously I do have a plan, but keep in mind that by taking here, I'm actually freeing up this entire diagonal for this bishop. So what is my idea here? So my idea is I develop bishop f4, they play c6, very thematic move. I play e3, and I'm really inducing one move. I really want them to play a very natural move. In the Queen's Gambit, black will often play bishop to f5 to try and deter either my bishop from going to d3, or especially deter my queen from coming to c2. Now, they actually do play this move, and that's actually the move I wanted to play. Now, this line would not be possible if it wasn't for this bishop e7 move and this entire variation, but there's a really surprising idea here that I was super excited to play. So back then, I played the move pawn to g4, and this is not an idea I can take credit for. It's not like I invented this novelty over the board. There was a famous game from Botvinnik where he actually played this exact same idea against a few people, and we're actually going to see a few moves later. This is actually a famous game from Botvinnik and Spassky that from 1970 that actually transposed to it. So it's a really cool idea, and I was familiar with that opening at the time of this game. So I really felt like I was playing like a grandmaster at this point. So here they have bishop to e6, which is a fine move. Now an alternative here is they could have dropped back this way to g6. If they drop back to g6, I can just put on the board, we actually play h4. And it's a very surprising idea where we are willing to sacrifice this pawn. And they have to be very careful here, because if they were to take like right away, hypothetically, the problem is there's a really surprising and very sharp queen to b3. And now they're actually tied down in a really strange way. Because here, this bishop is tied down with this queen. They have to maintain connection, or my rook is going to capture their bishop. But then how do you also defend the b7 pawn? So you can't play natural move like queen to c8, because we'll drop this bishop. And I don't want to go into theory for that. It's very theoretical and very sharp. But that's one idea that could have happened in this game that didn't actually come up. And the reason it didn't come up, of course, is because they dropped the bishop back to e6 instead of g6. But both moves are fine. The game continues. I still play the pawn to h4 move. Still a great idea. We're playing a very thematic sacrifice, and if they know their theory, they should not take that pawn. And they don't. They play knight to d7, which is, according to the engine, the best move. So far we're playing complete opening theory here. All this was well known to me, and apparently Hollybot is playing the best moves for this opening variation. So now I play pawn to h5, gaining even more space here on the king side. They play queen to b6, and now I play a really nice move, rook to b1. And this is more or less close to where my theory ended. It's in this position that we have that game I mentioned with Botvinnik versus Spassky from 1970. And all this I knew. So that was really exciting for me that I knew I was in like a famous position here. So I thought that was really cool. Unfortunately, my theory does end very shortly after because they play the move h6. And here, I'm kind of more or less on my own. And so I didn't really know what to do. First of all, this pawn is attacked by their bishop from e6. I do have my queen defending it, but I don't really want to have my queen babysitting a pawn. And so my idea was to play pawn to f3 and try and reinforce and secure this g4 pawn. So now they castle. So castling, I thought was a mistake at the time of the game. And of course the engine confirms this is actually a mistake, but you actually have to know, how do you exploit this? And so the reason I thought intuitively it was a mistake is because if we go back, all the games that I had studied from, this point, kind of onwards, you kind of notice some patterns. I've never seen anyone castle queenside. It just looks so risky to castle that way. What I expected instead was, like many other games, knight g to f6 here, just a developing move, and then later you'll probably castle kingside, and this looks a lot safer to the king. It looks a lot safer because these pawns at least are fairly close to where the king would be castled and offer it some kind of shelter. But if we notice when they castle queenside here, this is a lot more exposed, because even though the pawns look almost the same configuration, like here if we see this, it looks the same as this. What's the difference? The difference is this one is way more risky because first of all, I got my bishop already cutting through here, and second of all, from a pawn structure perspective, it's also a lot more risky for black because they can't tuck away their king and try and get it to the corner. Whereas the other side here, if their king was this way, I don't have like a bishop coming from a I or J file, so they could easily tuck their king away in the corner. I also made a video on castling, so you should check that out. And I also did another one on pawn structure, why you should not advance pawns in front of your king. So I'll put both of those on the screen. You just get to see those thumbnails, and then look for those in my channel if you want. And those are very similarly related videos to if you don't understand why this castling is not such a great move. But okay, let's continue with the game. I suspected it wasn't great, but how do I take advantage of it? And so the move I played was bishop d3, which is just a developing move, and I didn't really see a way to refute it, so I just developed. And it's a fine move. Objectively speaking, the computer says one move was a lot better, and that's why this is a mistake, because I missed the opportunity to play a really cool idea. Now, the idea I was on the right track of. The idea is I really wanted to play b4, and I really wanted to start a pawn storm on their king, because, my king is probably going to be more or less here or on the king side, and if we go king side at some point, either castling or king f2, it's a very common idea for opposite sides castled that we start playing a pawn storm. The problem is I didn't want to play pawn to b4 immediately because I thought that would just give away material, right? Like they have their queen and bishop, both of them attacking the square, and that's twice. Whereas my rook is the only piece defending. I thought I'd lose material in that line. So that's why I thought I really want to play b4, but I don't think I have the time to play it. Now, the surprising move is actually you play pawn to b4 anyway, and this is way better than just my passive developing move bishop d3. And so the reason this is so strong is because what happens if they just take the pawn like I expected? So if they take the pawn, there's a really cool idea I didn't see, which is to just play the king over king f2. Really surprising idea. It looks like you're sacrificing this knight, but the idea is, first of all, we're just breaking the pin. We're just getting our king out of harm's way, and they really can't take our knight because this queen is actually behind it. So really, their bishop is actually pinned. And so this is just a really cool idea. My king is a lot safer. And now they probably want to get out of the pin, so they're going to play queen to a5. But now queen a5 walks into queen b3. And already, black is just completely collapsing here. Their whole position is falling apart. This bishop still has to get out of the way, and the bishop can't take here because then I just have this really nice queen to b7 move. And that's just, you don't really want to walk into this. This is just a mate in one, ends the game really quickly. So unfortunately for the bot, it would have been collapsing at that point. But unfortunately for me, that didn't happen because I played the more passive developing bishop d3. Missed opportunity, but it is what it is. Now my opponent here, Hollybot, just continues to develop, looks normal, and of course I want to get developed too. We're still in the opening, I still want to get my pieces into play, so I bring my knight out, because of course this pawn was at its natural square, this bishop here was blocking the pawn, I really probably wasn't going to f3, so knight g to e2 just makes a lot of developing sense. They bring the rook over to the center, And now I play the king f2 move, which is just a slight improvement, you know, kind of connects my back rank a little bit here. And also the king looks a little bit safer there than being in the center, especially on the same file as this rook. Just tactic-wise from a long-term perspective, it's a little bit risky to be on that. Now, one might argue that also the queen is also on the same diagonal as my king, which is absolutely true, but these pawns probably are not moving anytime soon, so I think my king is safer on f2 than it was on e1. So now they play bishop to b4, and so I want to kick that bishop away. I play pawn to a3, and again, remember, I want to pawn storm. If I can get these pawns rolling, then that would be good. And so a3 is helping me support the pawn to b4 move. And so I thought that's actually kind of helping me play what I want to play. They went back bishop to e7, and again, I play exactly what I feel like, and that's b4. I want to keep the pawn storm going, you know, if possible, and so, of course, they want to stop me. They don't want me to rip open lines, so they play pawn to a6, trying to deter the b5 move, and then from there, I play knight to a4, try and kick their queen back. They do move back, queen to a7, and now this just looks like a really nice spot for my knight. It's not technically an outpost because this pawn can always kick it away long term, but then their king would be even more weak because they're advancing more pawns in front of their king. And generally speaking, you want to keep those pawns in front of your castled king very close by to offer it some kind of shelter. So here they play pawn to a5, and in this move, I played queen to c2. Looking back, now that I'm higher rated, I think a really interesting alternative would have been like queen to a4. And, you know, we kind of pinned this pawn because of the queen over here. And I think I'm just bringing more and more pieces to their king, you know, on this side, on the queen side here. But, you know, that's just looking back. Nothing wrong with the queen c2 move. It also puts the queen and bishop on the same battery here. Maybe any kind of ideas long term, especially on this f5 square, we might have some play. And also the queen being on the same file as the king might be a nice idea tactically long term. But okay, they play a captures b4. I take back, and now I have an open A file, so this actually looks kind of good for me, I thought. And so if they do nothing, like if they just wait, let's just say they waste a move, like literally play a silly move like this, then I can just play rook to a1. And rook a1 is very strong, because where are you going? Keep in mind, this square is controlled by my bishop, so you can't actually go there. And you don't want to go here with your queen, because then there's actually rook to a8, and then when you drop back, this is going to be this checkmate here. So you have to be very, very careful here, and your queen is actually kind of misplaced on a1, or sorry, on a7. And so rook a1 would have been a nice idea. And my opponent here, the computer Hollybot, played bishop captures g4, which is kind of a creative looking idea, where if I were to just take, which I didn't, you know, if I were to take, then I'd walk into this check and maybe be in some trouble. But here I don't have to take, as you saw with my move, I just play rook to a1, and now this queen is actually on some trouble here. And so they played a creative idea. This Hollybot is playing against me like Tao. They play bishop captures c5. And just look at how much they have here. Like, this bishop is actually under attack. This bishop is under attack twice. This queen is under attack here. I mean, they're playing like Tao. There's so many things hanging at once. And I can only take one at a time. Now here, I'll choose to take their queen. And then they, you know, play this really crazy knight to e4 move. Now, if they had just recaptured back, then there would be 8 points for the queen because, you know, they got the knight here and they got my rook over here. So at least that would be kind of close, you know. But I guess the problem in that line is I actually have this move, this queen sacrifice. I should add that for brilliant. I should add that little notation here because that's just a cool idea. Because they're forced to take, and then you have this Boden's mate with bishop to a6, and that's a really nice checkmate slicing through the board. But okay, instead of that, maybe they sense that, maybe not. They play this knight to e4, which is another check and another really cool idea where another piece is hanging. So again, this is a really tough bot to beat. But here I decided to trade and just take with the bishop. And now they take back on a7. And at least we have less pieces hanging. I'm up by 3 points of material right now, but my bishop is actually hanging, and so is theirs. So, you know, we can save both or we can take both, but right now I'm up material. So I choose to sacrifice my bishop because I'm going to get this bishop anyway, so why not grab a little extra material on the way? Now, they tried to get tricky again, very Tao-like, maybe that's how this bot is programmed, I'm not sure. Now they take on f3 and try and do the same idea back to me. But now I can take back with my bishop, and then I'm saving it from being taken this way. Now, I guess it's technically not entirely true because, you know, that pawn is still pinned, but it's just one idea where I thought, you know, this queen might not always be on c2. And so, tactically, I should probably take it back that way and just, you know, prevent things from getting too complicated. Especially because I'm up by a lot of material now. So I really just want to simplify. They played g5, trying to attack my bishop. Probably pretty good on this diagonal, so I don't blame them for kicking me away. But here, we don't have to play into those games. I can just play en passant capture. They capture back, and now I have the initiative again, where now I have something, I can do, something productive, because it's my move. And so I play queen to a4, and hopefully we can get the rook over to a1, put a lot of pressure here on their king. Just like the queen being on a7, now the bishop is here and can't really move, because then we have the same ideas with this check on a8. So you have to be very careful here. So they play g5, trying to attack my bishop. Very creative, where I'm attacking their bishop, so they just counterattack mine. And so now I play this bishop captures c6 with a very similar sacrifice idea to what we looked at. So if they were to take here, see if you can find the move. That's right, with Boden's mate, you can play the same idea. Queen to a6 is actually a checkmate here. Now, full credit also for queen captures c6, because in that case it's also a checkmate. But both of those, the computer didn't fall for. They take this bishop, too powerful of a piece, and they don't want to suffer through all of those complications near their king. So now I take their bishop, and so now they take this with check. I move my king back to e1, and they bring their king up. And so now I figure, well, I'm up already by 6 points of material. I just really want to simplify. I've tried to play this bot so many times at this point. As my forum thread shows, if you read it, my annotations, this was my 5th attempt at this bot. So it was a really hard, bot for me to win. It seemed like I was always getting a good position, and then would just slightly swindle out of it. Very tricky to play against. So here, I don't want any of the trickiness. I just want to, trade down as much as possible, simplify when I can. So I take a pawn here. They move their king to d6. And then I bring another attacker to their king with this rook move. And when they block, again, I've had so much of them. I'm up by a lot of material. I just want to trade. So I take with the rook. They take back. And now here I trade again. Because again, I just remove all their defenders. And hopefully my extra material will be enough. They take with the rook. And now I just sacrifice because I'm up by a lot. And I can see that I'm winning. Is it objectively the best to do that? Not really. It's probably better to use better technique and try and finagle it without giving up material. But a queen for a rook, I'm still up by enough. And so, as long as I get the win, it shouldn't really matter. So here they take back, and now my king just comes to d1. And the idea is very simple. I'm just going to come up, take their pawn, and then eventually I'm going to promote one of my pawns into a queen, and that should be an easy win from there. They come up, I go exactly with my plan, where I try and circle around, get to their pawn, and now this pawn is going to be my key to winning. Because if I had a lone knight, that by itself is not enough to force checkmate. But here with the pawn, this is going to promote to a queen, and then we'll have an easy endgame from here. So here they move. I just want to escort this pawn all the way to promotion. So I move my king first, start advancing the pawn. And then here we go all the way. We finally promote. And then it's just a matter of getting checkmate very quickly. So I just cut them off, play this box idea, try and keep the king corralled somewhere on that side of the board. They go b5. I bring my king closer. They go here. And now queen to b4 was actually best. I went king over here, which is also, I think, same number of move. Yeah, same number of moves. So I was looking here now, looking that be best, and then just go this way. Really easy. Wherever they go, it's going to be mate in 1. They go to the corner. We just go queen b7. But looks like king c6 first, like I played in the game. Also same number of moves, so that's fine. Just a matter of taste, I guess. King to a5. And now we just play any move that's, keeping the queen, and it's along this rank here. And then we just pass the tempo. Now, of course, we don't want to play this move, because then that would be stalemate, because that would take away this square, and they'd have no legal moves. So let's not play that. Let's not let them off the hook that easily. But if we play any move here on this rank, along the, there, then they're forced to a6. And queen a4 checkmate is on the board. I finally won against Hollybot. So it was a really cool game where I actually won in Botvinic fashion, because I really played all the moves up to move 10 from a very famous game of his. So that was really exciting for me to play at the time, especially because I was familiar with that game. So it felt like for once I was playing a really high level idea, when that very rarely comes up in my own games. Now another thing too is, like I said, this game was played at the start. It was playing on Christmas Eve night, and then actually went into Christmas Day. So I thought that was kind of a good Christmassy type video that I could show for everyone here, and I hope you enjoyed it. So thanks for stopping by, everyone. I'll see you in the next chess video.